Napoli fans around the world, welcome to Napoli Talk. We've got to talk about what's going on with some of these players and their potential transfers. We all know Osimhen might be leaving. We heard today, if you guys have been following, that Kvara's agent announced that PSG submitted an offer for Kvara and that it's all in the hands of Napoli now to decide. And Di Marzio is saying that this offer is around the 100 million euro mark. Guys, these are big developments. These are big stories. We will get to them. But the story that we have to talk about today is about Giovanni Di Lorenzo, our captain, and everything that's been happening over the last 2 weeks. But before we get to the last 2 weeks, we have to take a step back. We have to go back to the summer of 2023 when Napoli are fresh off a title and De Laurentiis renews Di Lorenzo, who already has a long-term contract, renews him for an extra 5 years until 2028 with an option for even 2029. And then a series of other renewals follow with players of the same agent, Giuffredi. You see, Mario Rui renews in August 2023. Politano renews in January 2024. These are all guys that are above 30 years old. Other players under Giuffredi, Gaetano and Foloruncio, get what they want: playing time and visibility. They go to Cagliari and Verona on loan. On paper, Napoli did everything they possibly could have to make Giuffredi's life happy and better. He got what he wanted. He got the contracts, the commissions that he wanted. And this is despite Giuffredi throughout the years, and especially this year, going off on various TV shows and radio shows saying there's X problem in the changing room, X manager is stupid for making this decision, this guy doesn't understand anything, and creating all sorts of problems within the atmosphere of the club. Napoli have always tried to work with this agent because it's, at the end of the day, at times a win-win situation. We get priority access to his players, and he also has a club that's willing to take on his players, and not all these players are superstars. We've had to take on guys like Hizai and Grassi in the past. And by the way, it's not like this guy has hundreds of players. He has about 30, and I would say out of these 30, 10 are either playing currently for Napoli or they have been ex-players. 10 out of these 30, more or less, fall into one of those three categories. So this guy relies on having a good relationship with Napoli. For whatever reason, he's trying desperately to mess it up. Maybe he sees that actually he needs to start diversifying away from Napoli because the day De Laurentiis doesn't want to work with him anymore, he's kaput. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's the context of the Di Lorenzo and Giuffredi's situation and the working relationship with Napoli. Let's go to the last 2 weeks because a lot of things happened. So let's start with the 16th of May, where on a Thursday, the day before Napoli-Fiorentina, De Laurentiis is talking about the summer retreat, and he mentions that obviously there's going to be a lot of turnaround this summer. A lot of people will be new, there will be a lot of changes, and if there's one thing that he learned in the last year is that you're not supposed to keep people and players that don't have full motivation to be there. And he goes on to say that everybody is on the transfer market for the right price. Okay? For me, that's a totally reasonable thing to say. I think it's normal that everyone in this world has a price to their employer. I think it's just the way it is. Even Messi, when he was with Barcelona, had a price if someone was willing enough to pay it. The next day, however, it's Napoli-Fiorentina. Di Lorenzo is in the squad list, but surprisingly, he doesn't make it to the starting 11. And Napoli released a statement that he has gastroenteritis. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, fine, fair enough, it could be, right? The next day, however, Il Mattino, a local newspaper from Naples, writes an article saying, I wonder if this is true, or who knows if this is true. Why? Because Napoli has a track record of saying that their players have injuries, and in particular gastroenteritis, whenever there's a situation happening behind the scenes. I think Zielinski has had gastro before and all this. It's a common injury within Napoli, and we tend to assign injuries to players when there's mercato situations boiling up. Now, Di Lorenzo sees this article and replies on social media that the newspaper should be ashamed of themselves. You know, he says shameful. And his agent the next day says, Di Lorenzo is very, very upset with the situation. He couldn't believe what was written about him. He can accept that they criticize his performances, but not his morality and not the fact that he might be faking an injury. In fact, he was so bad the other day that Napoli had to get a reserve key from the hotel to enter his hotel room, and they found him almost fainted. And this has really left Di Lorenzo speechless that they could be writing such things about him. So, on the weekend, after Napoli-Fiorentina, it seemed like Di Lorenzo and the agent had beef with a specific subset of journalists, right? There was nothing to suggest that there was problems between the agent and Di Lorenzo versus Napoli. However, on Monday, which also happened to be the first day that Manna was working with the club as a new sporting director, Giuffredi goes on the radio again, and without really much context, they ask him, is Di Lorenzo going to Inter? And Giuffredi says, until the season is over, I won't say anything. My guy, why would they be asking specifically about Di Lorenzo going to Inter? It seems like you fed that question because nobody was talking about Di Lorenzo to Inter before last Monday. So it seems like he's using the radios, like he does a lot of times, to start stirring things up, and he's accepting all these different invites to go and speak. Classic Giuffredi. So anyways, Giuffredi kind of leaves this door open to the idea that maybe once the season is over, something could be up with Di Lorenzo. Again, this is in Manna's first week at the club. Fun way to start your new job. Manna had been going around and talking to different players, getting their moods, understanding their situation, but we'll get to that later. What's important to note is that 2 days after Giuffredi goes on that radio show, De Laurentiis gets invited along with other presidents of Serie A to speak at the Senate. And they're speaking about how to improve football, what are the challenges, what are the things that are keeping football behind. And De Laurentiis says there's so many things wrong with Italian football, including agents. In fact, their blackmails are the real problem in the football system. They raise transfer fees and enlarge the costs of operating players. How do we fight agents? We have to make new laws that allow us to sign 8-year deals with players. So for at least the first few years, these guys stop asking us about renewals and asking for these players to be transferred over. That same afternoon, the Agent Association, AIACS, responds to De Laurentiis saying, "Words are highly damaging, offensive and discriminatory to the category of agents. We will evaluate possible legal actions against what De Laurentiis said about our profession." Right, so it seems that by the 22nd of May, Giuffredi and Di Lorenzo went from being upset at journalists to then potentially saying that there's something going on with Inter, for then De Laurentiis to say, "These agents, I hate them, they're the cause of all evil," and the entire association of agents saying that they're upset with De Laurentiis. Okay, are you following? Great. 2 days after this, Corriere dello Sport announces on a Friday morning, Giovanni Di Lorenzo has officially asked Napoli to be transferred. Inter, Juve, Roma and Atletico Madrid are interested. Okay. Right. So, 2 days later, on the Sunday, we get to the final game of the season, where in the meantime, all over social media, people are talking about this. There's those in favor of Di Lorenzo leaving this toxic club, and others that are saying, how could you possibly leave this club that gave you everything? This is not the way a captain should behave. In the midst of that situation, with fans being split 50-50, according to social media, Di Lorenzo starts. And just for reference, Di Lorenzo has started 46 games this season across all competitions, and he's finished 46 games. He's never once been subbed. And we've been through a lot this season. And what does Calzona do? He has this brilliant idea to take off Di Lorenzo on the 85th minute and bring on Mazzocchi.
Bruh.
Mazzocchi, a guy who Calzona basically doesn't even know exists. He never played Mazzocchi, and only played him when Di Lorenzo had that gastro against Fiorentina. Mate, do you think that this is a good idea to sub Di Lorenzo off and expose him to 60,000 people that are angry for so many reasons? For the season, for the result, and for the recent news about that specific player. If this was Calzona's way to be a tactical genius and try to win the game with Mazzocchi, well then I think Slovakia needs to fire him before this Euro starts. If this was Calzona's way to somehow get back at Di Lorenzo for something that's happened during the year, some disagreement, then he is an evil person to have Di Lorenzo go through that. Because you can be for or against Di Lorenzo choosing to want to leave Napoli if true, but he doesn't deserve going out like that. It's almost worse than what Sarri did with Maggio, where Sarri never let Maggio have a guard of honor in his final game of the season. Why would Calzona have beef against Di Lorenzo? There was that issue about the movie, where Calzona didn't want them to go watch the movie about the previous season because he thought that it would interfere with their rhythm. But I mean, they went to watch a movie at 8 p.m. I mean, it's not like they would have been sleeping at 8 p.m. They would have been up anyways, maybe doing something far worse than watching movies if rumors are true about what these Napoli players are doing. But it seems like Di Lorenzo insisted that they go watch this movie. Calzona was saying no. In the end, the club sided with Di Lorenzo. And so at least until a month ago, the club and Di Lorenzo were on the same page. They were also on the same page about going to have retreats together to try to bring the morale of the team back up. So it seemed more like Di Lorenzo had a problem with Calzona and journalists and not so much with the club, at least until last week. But anyways, this could be Calzona. It could also be Napoli being upset with Giuffredi and with Di Lorenzo after the news broke out on the previous 2 days about him officially putting in a transfer request. And we've seen Napoli behave bad towards some of their players in the past. Zielinski didn't get a chance to appear either that day. Lozano and Fabian, they were forced to leave the club. Otherwise, they would have apparently been rotting on the bench all season as well. So I don't know whether it was Calzona or Napoli, right? But it's a bad situation to be in. Obviously, a fraction of the fans booed him. Do I agree with the boos that Di Lorenzo got? Honestly, no. I agree to booing the team as a whole in general, but to single out a specific player, I'm against that. Definitely against doing that to the captain of last year's team. And if anything, if we're gonna have to boo Di Lorenzo, then let's do it when and if he joins Juventus. But so long as he's a Napoli player, I'm against singling out players like that. Anyways, after the game, I'm sorry guys, the story is very long, but I hope you're following. After the game and the days after, Giuffredi speaks again, talking about this, and he says, Di Lorenzo was speechless about the substitution. What Calzona did was not very intelligent, or there's something else behind it, which is basically the two things that we mentioned. Either it's Calzona not being very smart, him having a grudge against Di Lorenzo, or there's the club's decision behind it. Certainly, Di Lorenzo doesn't want to leave because of the booing. We can accept those as part and parcel of a passionate fan base. But the issue that I want to clarify is that when Manna spoke with Di Lorenzo, like he did with all the players, Manna said that he personally has a lot of respect towards Di Lorenzo, but that ADL was willing to sell him for the right price if the offer came. Di Lorenzo realized that there was a lack of support towards him from the club and explained to Manna that he wanted to be sold at that point. We never thought about leaving Napoli, but everything changes. The club doesn't believe in these players anymore, and so it's right that Di Lorenzo leaves as the club doesn't believe in him anymore, according to the fact that De Laurentiis said that everybody has a price tag. Only Conte, he continues to say, can save Napoli, and even if Di Lorenzo is essential for Conte, we want to have a new experience elsewhere. Maybe they should have thought about it earlier before telling Di Lorenzo that he was up for sale. Look, that's Giuffredi, and to some points he is right. Definitely strange for Manna to have these one-on-one sessions with the players before having a coach decided, before getting the opinion of the coach, because that's important. It's maybe not the right time to do this when you've still got games to play and you're exposing these players to the wrath of the fans. Because it's very different, social media versus actually seeing and hearing the booing inside a stadium. But at the same time, things don't sit right with me with the story of Giuffredi. I mean, De Laurentiis and Manna have gone out to tell every player that they're essentially up for sale for the right price. So why is it that Di Lorenzo is the only one reacting like this? And regardless of being captain or not, then every player should be asking to be transferred. I think it's strange to take De Laurentiis' comments so personally. I think every player should know that they have a price tag and they shouldn't feel threatened by it. I think it's a part of the game that they should accept. And it's just strange to me how the blame and the finger pointing has shifted so much from we're against this specific newspaper for having told fake news about Di Lorenzo, to then we're against De Laurentiis for saying that everybody is up for sale. We're against Calzona for making this substitution. He's not a very smart man. It seems to me like this agent is just throwing darts at the wall and hoping that something sticks, something that will break the relationship between his player and Napoli, or a mix of everything. I don't like that. I think things should be resolved behind closed doors. And listen, I want De Laurentiis and Di Lorenzo, Manna and Conte, when he arrives, to have a sit down and to resolve this issue. I want Di Lorenzo to change his agent, because this guy is a problem. I don't think he is acting explicitly in the best interest of Di Lorenzo. Even though I do agree that Napoli could handle the situation much better. And I think it's about time that Napoli, regardless of this situation, starts getting rid of Giuffredi's influence on this football club. If that means sacrificing Politano, Mario Rui, Gaetano, Foloruncio, then great. Because the influence that this guy has is too much. He's too well connected with the local radios. He's too vocal about the situations behind the scene. He says things and we don't know if they are right or wrong. He just spreads things. It's causing issues. It has caused issues in the past, and it will continue to cause issues if we keep Giuffredi in the ecosystem. So that needs to be solved this summer. If it means getting rid of Di Lorenzo, that's a shame. In the long term, that might end up being a benefit, because I think the impact of this agent is really negative on the club. And sometimes, you just have to make strong decisions about who you want inside your own friendly walls. It's hard to build a fort when you've got an enemy on the inside. So that's kind of my situation, or my view of the situation. It's very messy. It shows once again, whether you like this agent or not, whether you agree with Di Lorenzo or not, it shows that we have struggled to deal with situations this year. And I hope that Conte can come in and somehow solve it. I hope Manna can somehow pick up all these pieces and put something together. And guys, if there's any more news that breaks out, I will be sure to let you guys know. In the meantime, if you've made it this far, smash that like button, subscribe to the video, and put your comments below on what you think about it. And thank you for watching until the end. As always, Forza Napoli, sempre. Ciao.